Welcome everyone to the Season 4 Championship Table. I'm your host, TrulyFriendlyFoe, and with me I have Ultijim.
Hello, I am Ultijim. I am the current reigning champion of Season 3, soon to be dethroned here by one of these three great players.
That is right, we've got big names here because not only did Jim win Season 3, but I was a co-champion at Season 1, and our three players are all World Series of Board Gaming ring winners. In seat 1 here, we have Cliff, CJ Flash 76. He won the Gaia Project ring at World Series of Board Gaming 2022. He also made the final table in 2023 of that game, so very seasoned player. And then the second player, Thuichi, who is also known as PJ, won the Cascadia ring in 2023. I had the honor of playing him in the semifinals that year at the World Series. And then Nick won 2 rings. Nick is my name, won both Great Western Trail and Dominant Species Marine in 2022. So these are some very, very strong board gamers sitting down to a game of Wingspan. Let's look at the round bonuses. What do you think about when you look at this Ultijim?
Yeah, ground nest, and that's just total eggs. And number of birds in round 2. Total eggs in the wetlands, which I feel like wetland birds on average don't hold as many eggs. I could be wrong on that. Sets of eggs across the board. So as is common in Wingspan, we have a lot of egg-heavy round goals here.
The birds on offer here, we have the red cockaded woodpecker, hard to say that with a straight face, the mallard, and the eastern kingbird. Some people start the game by just snapping one of these 3 cards off the row. Do you think one of these birds will be taken right at the start?
It's quite possible the mallard will be. You want to get some birds in the wetlands early in order to be able to draw more cards and see more cards throughout the game. And the mallard is a super cheap, there it goes, look at that. It's a super cheap bird that lets you draw an extra card every time, so you just see more cards, and that's really the key to a game like this, is being able to cycle through and find the birds that fit what you're trying to do.
Exactly. A lot of these tableau builders with cards, the more cards you see, the better your odds are going to be. So card draw is just a critical ability in Wingspan and many other games. Every single player kept 2 cards. The fish here from Nick is my name makes me think that's a focus on wetlands.
Well, I learned this actually. There is only 1 bird in the whole deck that eats fish that does not go in the wetlands.
There is a single bird that does not go in the wetlands that eat fish. So it's a 95% chance that this is a wetland fish.
Unless Nick has the fish crow, he is planning for a wetlands bird at some point here.
The first bird has now been played by Cliff here, and he did go with that mallard that he took as his first move. This is just showing the strength of having the first player advantage, because not only does it go in the water, which is great for round 3 here, but it also is a ground nest, exactly what he needs in round 1 for the goals there. So being able to go first and take that was very nice.
Then we had the other snapped bird there come down from PJ, Kingbird.
Yeah, this one could go in any territory. It's a pink power. How strong are the pink powers in a 3-player game?
They're still pretty strong. Obviously, they get better with a higher player count, but at 3 players, it's not bad. And this one in particular, he's going to be getting a lot of free food from that, because the players are going to want to build out their forest a little bit early in order to get a food engine going. So I suspect PJ will be getting 4 or 5 worms out of that card, at least, probably throughout the game.
Nice, nice. Nick has also opened with the water bird. Let's take a look at Nick's opening bird. He is playing a pied-billed grebe.
It's basically the mallard, but it's even stronger because he gets to look at 2 and keep 1, while as the mallard, it just gives a single draw without a choice.
Yeah, so he's going to have his card draw taken care of with that in the wetlands. After Nick's bird, Cliff played 2 eggs. So that's going to make me think he's going for a second water bird. And then,
second water bird or just drawing again. It's helpful to have that pay an egg.
And it was a second water bird, but that's a good point. If you take 2 eggs, then you can draw 2 with that draw cards action.
It looks like he already had one in hand, ready to go, and it is that a tuck and lay an egg bird?
It is. So lots of victory points.
Right. It enables him to not have to take the lay eggs action as often, so he can again cycle through his cards. He's going to be getting 3 card draw now. One of those is not going to be a bird he wants, and he can tuck it and get an egg in the process.
That is very convenient. He may actually not build out his lay eggs row at all this game if he's able to put some victory point taking cards in the wetlands and use that as his VP row at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We have Nick taking eggs here after playing a migrating bird. How strong is this migrating bird for Nick?
I've heard different opinions on them. I've had some very successful games with them before, and they can also kind of be, I don't know, distractions sometimes, because they really require you to map out your moves ahead of time. To really know, I'm going to do this move, then I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to move it over here. But Nick is a strong enough player that he probably can do that. It is also a star nest.
Yeah, let's take another look at those goals, because not only is he hitting the first 2 with the star nest, but he can more easily in round 3 have eggs in water by migrating to water. And in round 4, he can balance out his eggs for the sets of 3. So it's very flexible. The most extreme cases of that is we had a league player named Captain Curbstomp, which is I think my favorite username in the whole league, who had 4 of those in a row. So when he took an action, he flew all 4 to a different row in one move. I'd never seen such a thing.
That is, I've never seen more than 2, so four is very impressive.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I think that Cliff and Nick don't have a food engine yet. They don't have a great way to get food. And when they start playing into the forest, then PJ will start receiving food. PJ might be in a great position here for that reason.
I'm not sure if it was Nick's intention, but by playing the flying bird, he can kind of skirt around PJ's pink power, because he can play a bird somewhere else, but then move it to the forest and still get food without triggering the pink power.
That's a great point. And the second column here in food, which is take a food and trade a card for a food, is exactly the trade that Nick wants to make, because he's bringing in so many cards by filling in his wetland. He's happy to give up excess cards for food there.
If he's drawing ones that he doesn't want, right? If he's drawing good cards, if he's getting lucky and drawing good stuff off the deck, he's going to want to keep those. But if he's hitting duds, it's a good way to turn those into something useful.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Canada Goose coming down from PJ. Discard a grain to tuck 2. This is a big VP bird, but your grain disappears. What do you think of this play?
It's very interesting. What does his woodpecker up there do? Is he
allowed
to
grain,
keep it?
It's you may, so he can keep the grain.
So that could be a kind of a combo there that PJ's trying to set up, with getting extra grain from the food row and then pivoting back and turning it into points.
A lot of Wingspan games have players building out their middle row to slam out eggs at the end of the game.
I've been kind of experimenting in my play, and I found that getting a little bit of card draw and food early is kind of stronger, and then pivoting into an egg engine at the end. Because you are limited to how many times you can run your egg engine based off of the egg capacity of your birds. And if you start running it too early, you can get kind of stuck, not have a good way to get points in the last few turns because your egg spots are all filled up.
I just played a game where an opponent in their very final turn laid 0 eggs with the egg action. Everything was full. So this looks like a game changer. Nick throwing down the Eastern Phoebe, because all players gain a word from the supply when he activates this. So this is going to change the food landscape for everyone.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, in this situation, I really like it for Nick, because he's already kind of heavy on cards. It gives him a way to get food to play those cards. I think it's tough for PJ, because he was counting on people going into the forest with his pink power that gains food when others do.
Right.
And for Cliff?
Yes, very good for Cliff, because he doesn't have a good source for food right now. And so he might be able to benefit from Nick's plays. I wonder how much of this play from Nick and Cliff of avoiding the forest is a direct reaction to the pink power that PJ played, or if it just is coincidence that they maybe don't have the birds that go there.
I think it's probably a misplay to, tie yourself into a knot to avoid a pink power. But here, it looks like it's working out for him. My guess is if Nick activates that a lot, I actually like Cliff's position the best, because in this one row, he can take 2 cards, he can create an egg from the red-winged blackbird, and then a 3rd card. So if food is coming in from Nick, he's got all 3 resources.
As long as he has some birds that eat worms. Yes, he can. And Nick has extra card draw too, right? So we have to remember that on his side.
Exactly. I think they both have a good position if there's plenty of food. Maybe one free worm every now and then isn't enough food, but we will see. So the first round finishes, and Nick takes first place in the round 1 goal, thanks to his wild card birds. He's also looking at first in round 2. Those birds are very flexible, and they're paying off.
It's not going to win him the game, but it certainly helps to get all the points you can.
Of course. Looking at the points overall, he's sitting at the most points right now, 14 versus 10 versus 9 for PJ. Card situation, 1 to 0 to 5, so maybe Cliff will jump ahead with his 5 cards. And his egg looks good too, so I like Nick's position right now.
They all have quite a bit of food, so I expect we'll see some birds coming down soon.
Yes, and let's take a look at the tray. What do you think of these 3 cards? The common loon,
beat me to it.
Turkey vulture, and the common nighthawk.
I'm a big fan of the vultures. They're just free birds. They cost no food to play, so you can just slap them down and kind of boost your engines. Not a lot of points, and the pink power here in particular is not very exciting because the predator power, the kind of skull and crossbones picture there, is generally the weakest of the actions, so I wouldn't expect to see a lot of that triggering. But if you're looking for a number of birds or just getting a bird in a row so that you can access the higher action efficiency when you execute that row, they can be good.
Yes, and especially with the food being a little shy, we just talked about everything needs to eat worms or nothing. Well, here's something eating nothing, and it goes in any habitat, so very flexible bird. I expected that to be picked up by Nick here, but he actually just drew 2 birds from the deck, so the turkey vulture did not tempt him.
Does he still have 2 more to draw, though?
Let's see.
Possible he will pick it up from his greed.
Oh, that is true. That is true. He has 2 draw right now. Let's see if it disappears. The common nighthawk is another flying bird flocking from one row to another. So it's also possible he'll take that one to go with his other migrating bird, but I don't think it happened.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 from the deck and 2 more from the deck. A little bit surprising, but I guess that vulture did not cut it.
Another wetland bird from Cliff coming down.
That is impressive. He's definitely going wetland this game.
It's a tuck and draw, so it's just another point when he executes his wetlands.
Yeah, looks like he's going to be just hitting the wetland in the end game because that's 1 point from the coot here, 2 points from the blackbird. That's not enough. He needs to put more in this row, but it's a good start.
It's a good start, and he's seeing a lot of cards. So if he's finding pieces to kind of pivot to another strategy, he has that ability. It's not too late in the game if need be.
The only weak part of his game right now is food. You can see he has 1 worm. Maybe that was given to him by Nick's generous bird. But that's where he's squeezed right now. He can only take food 1 action at a time. So he has to play scarcely. Maybe he wants the vulture.
It's PJ who has a canned goose. I saw he skipped it at least once already, which is sad to have the bird down there not using the power.
Yeah, we're still in the first half of the game where you need your food for eating instead of feeding to your geese, so that makes sense. And he's dropped a bird here in the middle row.
Tuck and draw in the middle row. I really, really like that as part of a egg point engine later in the game.
Yes.
It's a way to get points when you lay eggs, and it's somewhat perpetual, right? As long as you have a card in your hand, you can tuck it and draw another one, and then you can lay eggs again, and you don't run out of cards.
And you don't run out of spaces. I get really tempted by lay an egg on any bird in this row, but you lay so many eggs, you fill up all your birds. So this is still the same victory point. Not only does it not fill up your birds, but it also cycles your hands. You can get those cards you actually want.
Yes, and it is a bowl nest, which is, I think, this round's goal.
Bowl nest birds with at least 1 egg in them. So red's still ahead with 2, but let's see if other players can catch up. We've got 1 bowl nest for CJ Flash here. Cliff only has 1 egg in it. Of course, that's all you need to activate it. PJ has 2 bowl nests now, so he can tie Nick, but I think Nick can only hit 2 also. So right now, PJ's poised to catch up. There's still a lot more actions though, 6 actions in the rest of the round, so there's plenty of time to play another bowl and catch up there. The most interesting part of this round, I think, is where is Cliff going to get his food? Is he going to start playing into the forest, which gives PJ food? Or is he going to scrape by on vultures and worms?
And there is the lay an egg on any bird card that you were just talking about.
Exactly. It does not have the bull nest, so no advantage there. And it costs more food, so I think it's pretty much weaker. I mean, it's 3 points instead of 1 if we compare to the American Robin. But for this situation, I like PJ's bird better.
Just had a migratory bird played by CJ as well.
Oh, this is wonderful. He can cover his food by migrating this to the forest when he needs food.
And it is his second bull nest.
That'll put all the players tied at 2.
And once again, they are skirting PJ's pink power.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gotten a single worm from that yet.
That is rough. I mean, you would expect at least one forest bird to appear. We're halfway through.
That is rough. Remember, I predicted probably 4 or 5 for him. He's gotten none.
Yes, and he's passed on his Canada Goose again, as we see. Not feeling he has enough grain to convert to 2 victory points.
I tend to not like those birds. Give a food for 2 cards unless you're playing them kind of late game when you're switching gears from engine building to point scoring.
Right. Early game, you can't afford the grain. But late game, you're not going to activate it enough to overcome only 3 victory points. So there's that sweet spot where it might be good.
Right. And it has helped him draw some extra cards as he has been running his the wetland row. He's been seeing or getting that second card for free now because the goose is there. I would have liked to see another bird there, like a tuck and draw or draw 1 and discard 1 or something that kind of helps him see more cards as well instead of the goose that is kind of just taking up space at the moment.
That is very true. Now we see Nick giving away food. Worms arrive for everyone as he lays eggs there.
We have Cliff laying eggs and then moving his migratory bird into the wetlands to have even more card draw going.
This guy loves the wetlands. So is he then going to migrate to forest, or is he just going to, eat worms? We still see the vulture in the card. I think none of these 3 have been selected by any player.
I don't see the Nighthawk coming. Can you mouse over the loon real quick? It's 6 points, which is not bad for 2 food cost. But the power is not super exciting. Certainly not for Cliff, who already has 1 million wetland birds.
The Nighthawk here does cost 2 worms, which is the only thing Cliff ever gets. So maybe Cliff would be interested in that one. I think the vulture also maybe, because it takes no food. But he's turned up his nose so far. Maybe they'll just sit there. Do I see another 3 worms? Look at this. Nick is so generous.
More worms.
He is now at 11 of 12 eggs. He must want to play a bird. Oh, where did that bird go? Cliff took it. Oh, glad to see Cliff stealing that Nighthawk.
Okay, there it is. Like you were saying, if he's only getting worms as food, then might as well find a bird that he can play.
Exactly. And now he's migrated into forest, so he will be activating that and turning one of his many cards into food. So as we approach the end of round 2 here, who's in the best position in your opinion?
Ooh, I mean, Nick at 24 points already is really strong. But you did point out his eggs are already full, so he's going to need to find more egg space in order to keep running that engine. PJ is definitely lagging behind here with only 10. Can we scroll down to PJ's tableau real quick?
Yeah, he's dropping the gray catbird here. Repeat a brown power.
Oh. And that's another tuck and draw, basically, right? It just lets him... That Robin is going to have so many cards underneath it at the end of the game.
I love this, too, because it's another bull, so he's going to be able to lay eggs here at the end of round 2 and win the most bull birds competition.
Yes, we were just looking at the scores and pointing out him being behind, but as soon as he lays eggs, he's getting 5 more points, 3 from eggs and 2 more from card tucks. So he's going to jump right back up there.
Yeah, very true. And a flycatcher.
Oh my goodness. Which gives worms to everybody.
This is crazy. It's 8 victory points and it's a bull. So he may be laying one more time here in order to get 3 bull birds as well.
He's also pushing for the 3. That is, of course, the bird on the cover of the box.
Yeah.
Scissored tail flycatcher.
Nice. Nick has exactly 4 spaces open here, 10 out of 14 eggs on his cards. And if he lays, he's going to fill 4 eggs. That is some perfectly balanced play. He used every single piece of food available to get that bird out. I've never seen anyone avoid forest as well as PJ's opponents have done. No forest birds from either opponent. That is just crazy.
I'm impressed at how many birds Nick has gotten out without having anything in his forest.
So Cliff activates his migrator, takes the food, and migrates back to water. He actually goes for a mouse.
And he clearly plans on drawing more birds here for his next action or in the near future.
Yes, indeed. Interesting, he has not taken the vulture because food is the tightest resource for him here.
What is the bird in the tray there on the right that was replaced? Is that pine siskin? Huck a card and get a point, and then you get an extra food. But those are hard to play because you don't. I mean, at this point, the players have shown they're not really interested in running a forest engine, so it seems to just be left behind.
Exactly. It's very tempting as a new player to say, this is the card I want because I have too many cards, I don't have enough food, and it turns cards into food. The problem is it sits in forest and you don't want to be activating forest, so it just doesn't get triggered.
Unless you have birds that give you points for running it, you don't get points for running that row, so it's not an exciting action.
Right. High-level Wingspan is all about figuring out which row you're going to run in the end game and building an engine for that, because you don't want to have two good rows. You can only use one of them at a time, and that's wasted effort.
We have chat noting that pretty soon Cliff is going to have a second migratory bird because he did draw that one from the tray that we saw him take, the Nighthawk.
Right. It's going to be fun to see two migrations in a row flying around. Coming up to the end of round 2 here, each player has about one action left. 2 for Cliff, and then we'll all have 1. It looks like the round 2 bonuses are locked in. Cliff's not going to be overtaking the bowl themes. He does have 2, but...
He has 2, but the other players both have 3.
You know, ooh. I think I'm straight up wrong. He's just played a 3rd.
There it is. And it's another tuck and get an egg bird, but this time he places it in the egg row, which is great for 2 points when you're starting to run eggs as a kind of endgame point engine, as long as you have that supply of cards to keep feeding it. This is the one that lays it on itself, so he is limited to running it 3 times before he needs to spend one of those eggs by either playing another bird or some other form to make room for more eggs on that bird.
Right. Unless he spends the eggs, it's limited to 3 moves. The Grackle's nice because it can go in any row, and he chooses the middle row. Do you think Cliff is going to be building out his middle row to lay eggs as his final few actions, or do you think he'll be using this powerful wetland row?
Well, I think by putting the Grackle there, it says that he's planning on building out the grasslands, because otherwise he would have left the Song Sparrow in somewhere else and put the Grackle in there. Then he could have been getting 5 points by running the wetlands every time. But the fact that he's splitting up his point scoring birds kind of signals to me he's planning on shifting.
Yes, that's a very interesting strategic decision, and it may have been smarter, better, stronger to play it in the 4th column here of the water row. We will never know, but that's an interesting alternative play.
I think it just depends on, he's drawn, gosh, I don't even know, 20, 30 birds probably at this point. So he's seen a lot of stuff to be able to formulate that strategy that he wants to do.
Yes, and he has 4 cards in hand, so he may be building a strategy around cards we don't see, where he's got more birds going into grassland, making that a killer row as well. We've got Nick activating grassland. Is he going to give worms to everyone?
2 potentially worms for everyone.
He's migrated up here.
Oh my goodness, look at that grassland already. 4 eggs. Moves his bird. What of truth? He has 1 and 2.
Ah, we're rich. We're rich. This is going to be a high-scoring game with all of these worms flying around. You are go ahead.
Reminiscent of the finals this season when Bob played not 1 but 2 hummingbirds in his egg row, and we just had so much food. I didn't know what to do with it all.
Right. The hummingbird gives everyone a food from the birdhouse. So it's not worms, it's a food of your choice. So that really raises the scores of every player. So much food, in fact, that we can see Cliff has discarded worms in order to lay an extra egg. A surprising move. You don't usually see someone giving up food when they have nothing in the forest, but Cliff has plenty of worms.
That is amazing.
So what
And
happened
we
in...
ended up,
Go ahead.
I think I was asking the same question about the scoring there. So Cliff was able to sneak in with his third bowl there at the end of the round.
PJ did
And
not get a laying action here. PJ did not lay eggs on his other two birds.
he has the same number of bull nests, but he did not activate the row and play them.
Exactly. So he finished that round with only one out of his three bowl birds activated and takes third. That's very costly. He was in position to do better.
Right. And then we have the new tray of birds here in round 3. And as we've been talking, Nick has snapped up the American crow from the row, which is kind of the nerfed version of the ravens, where you can discard one egg and get an extra food to your supply, which is great for Nick, who's overloaded with eggs at the moment. He is full at 14 of 14 capacity, and he can turn those into food now and keep running that egg row and getting even more food.
That American crow is a clutch bird for Nick. He has too many eggs and no food. Well, plenty of worms, of course. But with that crow, he's going to have all 3 lanes covered. Another card coming from the tray is Cerulean Warbler.
So interesting he's going for, it's a little late for the bowl nest, but obviously you do want, we're going to need some birds in the forest here eventually for the sets of eggs goal at the end of round 4. And just drawing more bonus cards is a good way to try to search for points as well. Oh yeah. My, look what else is showing up in the row. We have a bronze-headed cowbird. That is one of the strongest pink powers in the game, because you get an egg every time your opponents run their egg engine, which happens quite a bit. And we've seen Cliff is already pivoting to that, and obviously Nick is running his a lot as well. That would be a fantastic bird for PJ to pick up.
Yes, not only do we have players in the eggs laying, but it lays into a bull nest, and every player has plenty of bull nests to put those eggs into. Let's quickly look at these other 2 birds on offer. Discard a fish to tuck to. Don't see that working out with just not enough fish flying around this game. And
same thing as a goose, right? It's just you don't have the food to support it.
Yeah, it's even harder to get fish than it is to get grain.
And then we have the pileated woodpecker, which at this point in the game it's just too late because no one's built out a forest engine. That bird can be amazing if you have a forest engine strategy, because you get eggs in the forest. So you're getting kind of that dual action. You're getting food and eggs in one move.
Exactly. Just not for this game. Nobody cares about the forest.
But pair that with the wood duck and you get some amazing scores.
And here comes the woodpecker.
Oh, and once again, Nick trying to skirt the power, because he's not he's playing in the forest, but he's going to get 2 down in one move in order to. Oh, and he puts the crow in there. That is interesting.
Wow, that is such a surprise. We expected to see the crow in the egg row, but maybe Nick thinks he's still going to have so many full nests that he just can't afford to activate that egg row very often.
I don't know that I've ever seen the crow in the forest. That is very interesting.
Are you an actual birder? You go to forest and you just don't see crows?
I'm referring to the game, but you know.
I mean, it's 4 victory points, so it's a decent bird in any case.
For only one food cost. That's a good conversion rate.
Yep.
We have another bonus card. Who is that played by?
This is PJ bonus in the forest.
Hey. Speaking of bonus cards, if we can look at Cliff's real quick.
Yeah.
There is a bonus card that is 2 points for every tuck bird that you have. That could be part of the reason why Cliff went that strategy with all of his tucking birds.
That is a great observation. He already has 3 tucking birds. And he has played both of his migrators.
I don't know why they're just sitting in there in the wetlands, though. That is interesting to me. I would think he'd move them to the forest to get food, or put them in the egg row and get some more eggs and then move them to the wetlands at the very end for the bonus.
Right. Well, he's activating the water row right now. so they may leave and come back in time. We have 3 more actions after this one for Cliff, so he probably will have time to put him back in water.
And this goes back to kind of what we're talking about at the very beginning of the game of kind of being able to plan ahead and knowing, right? I'm sure Cliff has a good plan of what he's going to do here for his next few turns, but
yeah, he really has to say, I've got 3 moves. These are the 3 things I'm going to do, because he wants to end them in the right spot. It requires planning.
Yep. He does his tucking and egg laying thing. 37 points.
37 to 49, but poised well for the round 3 bonus, eggs in wetland. Let's take a look at what the maximum people can score on that bonus is. Because if Cliff's moves...
Oh, there's PJ snapping up the cowbird that I mentioned earlier.
Nice.
He's had enough of this lay eggs actions by the other players.
And he's got plenty of room on his bull nests for that. So if Cliff lays eggs everywhere in his water, he's got 12 native ones, plus 7 more that can fly in for 19. I think this is a shoo-in.
Absolutely. PJ is stuck at 5.
5, and what are we looking at here for Nick? Is this Nick's board? It's totally changed.
4 plus another 2 from his Chimney Swift migrating in, so he could sneak in for second, but Cliff could just stop right now at his 8 and it'd be good.
Yeah, excellent observation. Second place bonus is actually only 1 point different than third. It's really all about first with the 6-3-2 split, so it doesn't matter too much to stretch out for that. PJ doesn't need to contort himself to get another egg into wetland.
You see Nick getting food from the forest row. Apparently he's run out of things to do with worms and needs something other than worms to keep playing.
I think it's just because he has every egg possible already on his board. It's like, if the game ended now, that'd be perfect for him. He's way ahead, but he can't gain more points through eggs.
And yet here he is moving his Chimney Swift back into the egg row as if he's planning on doing it soon.
Well,
but he's clearing one out from the crow, right? The converting eggs into food. He just removed one from the Baird sparrow. And if he plays a bird, that's going to use up another couple, egg or 2, depending on where he puts it, and free up some more egg space. And add more egg space from the new bird being added.
Exactly. So this game for Nick is all about, how do I make room for eggs, because my egg engine is the best engine, and I guess activating food is how he does that. He's still at 17 of 18 right now, so he needs to take some steps to make more room there.
Right.
Interesting looking at the victory points. Nick is way ahead on points, but he's just about capped on eggs. So it'll be very interesting to see if that cap impacts his ability to score in the 4th round.
We get another wetland bird from Cliff coming down. Is that the Clark's grebe? Another grebe. And it just draw and discard one. So all it does is help you cycle through cards. But 5 points per single resource. Star Nest is irrelevant at this point, but still a good value bird.
Exactly. It looks deceptively similar to a tuck and draw, but draw and discard is not a victory point. Tuck and draw is. The 5 points, though, people underestimate the number of victory points on the card. 5 versus 1 is 4 points, and if your card is tuck and draw, you're going to have to activate that bird 4 times just to break even. That's a lot of action, so sometimes more VP is better than the activation power.
Especially later in the game, right? The way the Wingspan birds are generally designed, the ones like the Mallard that give you a good engine don't give you any points. So those are okay early because you'll be able to use the engine and get your value out of the bird. But towards the end of the game, you just want to be playing, like you said, just get your victory points, right? It's playing a 1 or 2 point bird that lets you lay an egg is going to put you behind someone who's dropping 7 point, 8.9 point birds.
Great point. That is very true. We have a card from PJ. It is a draw 2 when played.
a great early bird to kind of get more choices going. Here it's 4 points, so it's not quite as good of a conversion rate as the grebe we just saw. But it is just worms, and he may have an excess of those still left over from earlier in the game.
Very true, with Nick giving worms to everyone. That's a worm sink, as you call it. But look at this much better worm sink with 8 victory points.
Yes, that's what I was just saying. When you could be playing, you're only playing 1 or 2 point birds, and then someone drops an 8-pointer like this down. Hard to keep pace with that.
If PJ activates eggs and gets a 4th egg from exchange food to egg, then he will get 4 points from those eggs, and the 2 chuck and draw, that's a 6-point action. If Nick, on the other hand, activates his egg row,
he's still only getting 5.
We're looking at 5, so it's pretty close. I think the VP gap right now, 28 to 55, is a more serious issue than the board position.
Yes. Yeah, that you're not going to make that up with if you're making 1 extra point a turn by running your egg engine. It's going to take a lot of turns to catch up a 23-point gap here.
So we were wondering if Nick was going to cap out on egg engine not working out, but if he's got 8-point birds to drop, he's going to be doing just fine.
What is Cliff at right now? Is it 48?
He's at 43,
43.
So 12 points
43.
behind the leader.
We will make up some of that from the end round, right? He'll be gaining 3 on Nick there.
Possibly more. PJ can get to 5 eggs, and Nick is only at 4, so Nick would also have to respond by laying
Eggs or moving his bird, but where it's positioned right now is the same thing, because his migratory bird is in the grasslands currently.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Nick, in order to get his full 6 points, 6 eggs in the water, he has to lay as his last action. He only has 1 action left. But at 16 out of 20, that may not be the best move for him, because he would be laying 5 eggs and drop 1.
He would be forfeiting 1 egg for 1 point. And here comes the cowbird. I really would have liked to see PJ get that down a little sooner, certainly before the stilt was played. The sooner you get that down, the more likely you'll be getting resources from your opponent's actions.
Exactly. The stilt doing nothing, the cowbird doing everything. If Nick plays eggs in his last action, that's going to give PJ 1 more egg. But it looks like he's spent eggs out of his water in order to play that cowbird.
Oh, wow.
So he has 0.
No eggs whatsoever.
Have you ever seen this? 0 eggs out of 22? That is it's a lot of room for eggs.
And if that's the action he plans on running, right? Because now he's up to 4, 5. He's still at 6, but he doesn't have to pay the food anymore to get that if he were to just run his grasslands each turn.
Right. He's at 6 VP per round, and there are 5 actions in the last round. Is that right?
That is correct. So he could get 30 from that, and he'd be laying 4 times 5. He'll be laying 20 eggs, which fits in his 22 capacity, except that cowbird is going to be doing some work and getting him some free eggs as well. So I suspect he would actually run out of space if he were to do nothing but lay eggs the rest of the game.
That seems correct. And thinking about sets, that final goal, he can only get 5 sets of 3 because of the capacity issue in the forest. Although that may easily beat... Cliff has 2 migrators, but some issues with 2 short rows at the moment.
Right, because if he moves those up to the forest, then his grasslands doesn't have the capacity in it.
His worst case scenario, he could migrate just the song sparrow up, which has 5 capacity, and then he'd have 5 as well, tying for that 5.
5 sets, right? And Nick does have 6 with the Cerulean Warbler coming down. And he gets his second bonus card.
The more cards you have on your table, the more those bonus cards are going to be worth. With 9 birds already down, he has a good chance of drawing some bonus cards that will pay off.
Like something, but the later in the game that you draw them too, you have less time to react. So you're really hoping to draw something that is meets what you've already played. As you don't have a lot of time to try to earn those points if you get something that you have yet to fulfill.
Although this feels like icing on the cake, the bird is already worth 4 points. I think this is Nick's game to lose. He is in an advantage, and I don't know if the others can catch up.
As a big point gap, and Nick can still just get. We got 5 points if he were to run his grow, except for the capacity issue. He still is only room for 7 more eggs. He does have 3 cards in hand, so he could still be planning on playing another bird or 2 here before the end of the game.
Not only does he have 1 grain, but activating his egg engine produces 2 worms with every activation. And you can use 2 food for 1 of any food. So if his bird needs a berry, he can feed that bird with 2 worms instead. So I think we'll see another bird or 2 from Nick in the final round.
Yep. Here's the official ending. It looks like PJ did lay eggs 1 more time and jumped back into second for their end of round goal.
That was sweet. Taking second place there from Nick, 1 extra victory point, or 2 points if you consider the difference between their scores. Final distribution of birds has appeared here. Anything the players are going to want?
At this point, it's probably a bit late, but you do have the other cowbird showing up to leech off of your opponent's lay egg actions.
The most eggs this cowbird can lay would be 5. Really? It must be 4. You have to draw it and play it. So
you should draw it and then play it. We have... Oh, interesting. We have Cliff playing one of the lay and egg birds, but as we were talking about earlier, it's only worth 1 point. So it will make more points up for him as he runs his egg engine here throughout the rest of the game, but it's still a relatively low point scoring bird at this stage of the game.
Right. With 4 actions left, Cliff can only do 4 more things this game, and that's 4 eggs at most from this bird, so it's capped out at 5 EP. Too bad he couldn't find a higher scoring bird.
And one interesting observation here, he has moved his migratory birds and split them up, as you mentioned. But he flipped them, and he put the 5 egg down on the bottom and the 2 egg capacity up on the top.
I don't understand that. He may have wanted the 5 on the top and the 2 on the bottom. I don't see any downside to that split instead.
So that may cost him some points here in the end of round 4 scoring.
PJ making the very straightforward play, laying eggs for the first action. He will probably lay eggs a lot here in round 4.
Yeah, that was 6 points for him. And he does still have 3 cards in hand, so it's possible he does play 1 more bird. And this gives him the opportunity to cycle through and find that perfect last bird to get down.
Not only does he have a rodent and a worm, but I'm predicting 2 more worms for every player because Nick is going to want more food for himself. So I think PJ is going to have plenty of food to feed his last bird.
I know it's Nick's turn, and he's probably going to be getting points right now. But at the moment, Cliff has caught up and is only 6 points behind. You got to remember, Nick is that 1 extra action that Nick has right now. He's going to widen that lead.
It's not so hard to catch up when you just take more turns than your opponents.
It's a great strategy.
Well, that is the strategy in worker placement, right? Get more workers so you can place more workers.
What did Nick do on his turn? Did he get food?
He took food. He actually discarded a bird, the painted bunting here, in order to draw 4 food.
4 food. So he actually technically lost a point on that turn.
Well, his actual victory points is 22 at all times. You know his eggs are going to shoot back up.
Yes.
So Cliff does activate Wetland as you predict and migrates to the middle row. So he's clearly got a planning ahead mentality. He knows where his migrators are going to end up at the end of the game.
Yep. So he will be laying eggs here, and he's got the migratory bird there to kind of give him some extra production, and then he'll move it on the final turn where he wants it to end up.
Probably the forest, but we will see. That will give him 6 sets of eggs across the 3 environments. And PJ laying eggs, no surprise there. I think he's going to need to play his forest bird as his second to last action in order for his last action to fill it up for the sets. But he did not receive the free worms that I predicted that Nick would give him. Don't forget you can always pass the brown ability of any bird. So if Nick decides he has enough food, he could deny his opponents those free worms. Could be a critical move.
And I think given that he just drew 4 or got 4 food on his own, the last action, I don't see Nick giving anyone extra resources at this point in the game.
Not unless his birds are very, very hungry.
Which is possible. Those 7, 8, 9 point birds commonly have 3 resources.
And there it is. Just as you predicted, a 3 resource, 9 point trumpeter swan.
9 point birds are great point bomb. I mean, that was still 4.5 points a turn, right? Got 0 points for drawing food, but then he got 9 the next move. It's still about as good as running a 5 point egg engine.
I wonder if he will play a 4th forest bird. That would give him even more sets and clinch him first place in this final round goal.
He has 2 food left over.
Cliff's action here was to lay 3 eggs, not migrate. A 6-point action because he also has a sparrow.
A good round.
PJ doing the same, activating his egg laying.
Getting his 6 points as well.
And don't
Plus
forget,
he got the cowbird's action from Cliff's move. Laying.
So will he give away the worms? He chooses not to. Nick starving the table.
Cliff here has no food whatsoever, so he has really no choice but to run his eggs and just get his 5 points now. Oh, it's still 6. It is still 6.
It is still 6. And PJ, this is his penultimate turn where he would be playing that forest bird. He may not have the food he needs to do it.
Interesting here that Cliff has moved his bird up.
And he's in that awkward position where every bird is full with 1 action left and no food.
And no food either.
72 to 69.
That Cliff's final turn is going to be lackluster. And Nick, I think, still has some firepower available here. Cliff is stuck with 6 cards in hand at the end of the game. It's a little sad to see. Kind of means you've run your engine more times than you really needed to.
Painful. Oh. But PJ did get a bird out on his second to last action, giving him more egg capacity.
Giving egg capacity, but it's only a 3-point bird, and you had to pay 2 just to play it.
Ouch.
That's an interesting. Unless maybe he has a end-game goal or a bonus card that has either colors in their name or anatomy piece, anatomy for the bill. I don't know why else that you would be playing that bird at this stage of the game.
Well, he was going to be maxed out on eggs as well, so it may have just been the best of the bad options with his food scarcity. And now Nick gives away 2 worms to every player. Man, this guy is next level. He starves everyone. Then they make the suboptimal play because they're forced into it, and then he gives the food away.
My suspicion is that as many cards as BJ has seen, that bird at least helped with 1 of his bonus cards.
That's a good guess with 3 bonus cards there. Cliff with the final action does have a bird that requires worms.
And he got the worm from Nick. So that was a 3-point action because you had to pay 2 eggs to play the 5-point bird. So it really ended up being about the same as running his wetland by itself. He was getting 3 points either way.
Well, the blackbird was full, so it is 1 more point.
Oh, that's a great observation. It is 1 extra point. And there's a chance that it works towards 1 of his bonus cards as well. 11 tucked birds under PJ's middle row there. The robin.
It is now 12. Beautiful. Final action of the game. Does Nick have a bird?
He does. Plays 2 eggs, and it is an Oriole, another 9-point bird.
Oh, this guy is too good. Another 9 victory points.
Well done, Nick. Congratulations on the season victory.
Very well played. It was a pleasure to watch. And thank you all for joining us. This is Truly Friendly Foe,
And Ultijim.
signing off.